Sup nerds, I'm Wes.
And I'm your boy, Big T.
Today we're taking a look at Shifty-Eyed Spies from Big G Creative.
There's a game that me and Wes used to play back when we were in college that I think is a very good encapsulation of Shifty-Eyed Spies. And that game was called Signals or Signs.
Something
There
like that,
would be a group, we'd have a big group of people, everybody would sit in a circle, and one person would stand in the circle. Everyone had a sign, like a little gesture that was to them. Like your gesture was that, mine would be like this, or somebody would be like this, or whatever. But like they could like make a little gesture that's theirs. And the person in the middle of the circle had their gesture. Let's say Wes is in the middle and his gesture is this. Everybody in the circle had to try and gesture that to somebody else, make eye contact with somebody else in the circle and gesture that to that person so that person got that sign. And now they have to gesture that to another person or whatever without the person in the middle seeing. That's like 90% of what this game is.
Yeah, it's totally, but instead of having a person in the middle, it's like you're all in the middle and you're all on the outside. The premise is you get dealt a person and a location card that these two, it's like two different things that are going on. So your person is, you need to get their attention by winking at them. So at some point during the game, you need to wink at them and let no one else see it, but make sure that they see it. And then once they see that you've winked at them, they need to tell you what their card is. Again, not letting anyone else at the table see it. So if I wink, they say, okay, got it. And like somehow acknowledge that, okay, and I have to keep an eye on them for them to then say like, this place. Mm-hmm. But do that in a like obvious enough way that I can see it across the table, but discreet enough that no one else at the table can see it. Yeah. And it doesn't sound great when I say it like that.
Well, winking at somebody is like, hey, you're my person, what's your location?
Yeah.
So where these are placed on the table is kind of important. And also where you're sitting is kind of important because I have a really long table, mm-hmm. right? And my buddy Mike was sitting in a big comfy chair over here, and he was also like leaned back. So he's like, oh, it's so hard for me to do this. I'm like, well, don't lean back, loser. But like, yeah, you do need a bit of a circular table so that everybody can see everybody. Because if I wink at Wes like this and somebody else sees me wink at Wes, there are 3 of these little things. They can take one of their 3 things, go boom, wait, nope. Tom, did you just wink at Wes? And if I have Wes's card, meaning, yeah, I was winking at him, I have to go, yep, you're right, boom. Or if they're wrong, then I just say no.
You would score that point.
Yes,
if you
for the
intercept,
someone scores the point. Yes, for the intercept, yeah. So it's risky for them to do that, but that also kind of begs the question because one guy was just winking at people just to throw whoever was watching them off, and I'm pretty certain that's not allowed. It didn't specifically say it in the rules that I saw, but like that's totally against the spirit.
Well, yeah, absolutely, because like, okay, so he winked at me, so I'm like, okay, and I told him my location. I'm like, okay, it's there. And so then he was, okay, Wes, yours is there. And I was like, well, yeah, like, no crap. Like, that's the point of the game is for me to tell you that. So, like, you can't cheat in this game because you're just a crappy person, Will. But there's definitely, like, getting into the spirit of the game because it got a little crazy because for, like, the first few minutes, we're all just going...
Yeah.
You have to be, like, watching everyone, and you don't want to, like, focus. Because if I'm just, like, let's say, like, Tom winks at me. And I'm looking at and then Tom just watching me to get the location. People say, "Oh, Tom is just staring at Wesley for a while. He probably has Wesley." So then they're gonna watch me because when you do call them out, however many you say the person in the location or either or, and however many of those you get right, you score those points. However many you get wrong, they score those points even though they didn't call it. First 1 to 5 points wins. So you don't want to be wrong because if you're wrong, you give them points. And so you kind of want to like sit on it and wait so you can get both points with a single interception. But if you wait too long, somebody else might get it. Mm-hmm. Or the briefcase goes around and lets people complete those missions. So if like, okay, I have that, Greg, you guys know Greg. Greg winked at Tom, but I'm going to wait to see the location and then Greg gets to score that point. Well, now I don't have that information anymore.
Yeah, there is a little bit of clunkiness because the briefcase is like turn order. It's like, it's Wes's turn, it's my turn, it's somebody else's turn. Because on your turn, you can either, like the information that you've been gaining the whole round, the whole game, like the winking and looking and stuff, okay, I know Wes has my card and I have Wes's location card no, I have Wes's card and Wes has that location card, whatever. So I'm going to say, hey, Wes, you and me at the newsstand. And it'll be like, yeah, that's a deliver. That's something you can do on your turn.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also like the only thing you can do on your turn. You can do that or you can pass, because up until then you haven't gained any information. That's when you can redraw cards. So if you draw your own card, you kind of have to wait until your turn to just say pass, dump your hand, and gain. I mean, all that while you can be sitting there and watching everybody else. But the whole turn issue is just a little clunky of like, whose turn is it? Well, it's your turn, but like everybody's doing stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
especially, so I had an issue where, like, the briefcase came to me, and I knew who my person was, but they hadn't given me their location yet, so I had to pass, and then immediately I learned the location. And I'm like, okay, well, an 8-player game, I've got to wait for it to go all the way around the table, and because there's multiple every person, somebody else also had that person, and they scored that location before it got back to my turn, even though I had the information first. And so then I'm like, oh. So now I still have this card, I have to wait for him to draw a new location, and for him to tell me that location, and then that's even another chance for us to get caught in the act. So, like...
Granted, all the while, though, you could just be, like, you could never deliver anything. You could just be watching other people intercepting their things.
Yeah, but because you only have 3 of the binoculars, you have to get at least 2 full interceptions to win the game, because that was my first thing, is I'm like, oh, well, I'm just going to call out everything I see, and if I give away a point, who cares? And I'm like, oh, but now if I'm going to win, I have to make my deliveries, and the game just got not only that much harder, but that much less fun, because I no longer cared about who was winking at who. So these are kind of a precious resource that I almost wish that when you completed the delivery, you got like 1 back. I think that could be a good house rule for it, because that would keep you in the game longer, and the more accusations that are happening, the more fun the game is.
Yeah, really. And so I do think that this game has a little bit of clunkiness, as we were just saying, and it does suffer in a way from that, it's really hard at first. It gets better. You get better at the game the more you play it.
Yeah.
So if me and Wes and Aaron have played it a bunch and we add in a new person, that person's going to be at a bit of a disadvantage and maybe a little bit overwhelmed at first with all the looking and thinking. They're like, right? And it's also just not for that type of person that gets super nervous. Yeah. But you kind of knew that from the beginning when I was saying that this is definitely, a bit of a party game. But I do really like it. I think it is a lot of fun for a party game. Don't go into this thinking it's going to be the Resistance or something, because it's not that deep.
There's not a lot of bluffing.
Yeah, there's no bluffing actually, really, in a way, because you can't just wink at somebody just for the hell of it.
Yeah.
So there's no bluffing. It's just all party and wacky nonsense, and you really got to kind of loosen up, because if you're like, no, you caught, you did, just okay, like.
Yeah, we did kind of decide this game was way better after a few drinks, and everyone loosens up, and everyone just gets a little goofy. Because, like, especially, with 8 men, and they're, like, late 20s, early 30s, and Greg. Like, it can at first be like, we're all just supposed to wink at each other.
We were saying it would be better as a drinking game, not only just having a few drinks, but if like every time you delivered, every time anybody scored a point at all, you took a drink, or anytime you called something wrong or something, you took a drink. Like, you would probably have to play a couple rounds of this game to get really hammered if it was just 1 drink or a shot. If it was a shot, that would be okay. So I'm not encouraging anybody out there to drink, especially if you're underage. Under 21 in America, or under 18 for most of the other places in the world, okay? But, I'm just saying do it.
Regardless of all that, we really did have just a blast playing this game. And it's always nice to be surprised by review games. Because honestly, like, we got this game, and it's been on our shelf for a little while, because we got it, and I was like,
But by the same token, though, getting that many people together is difficult for us.
True.
So it's not just because we were judging the book by the cover, which we were totally doing.
Yeah, but we had a blast playing this game, and if you have a group that likes party games, you need to have a lot of people. It says you can play it at 4. I'm going to say that you really need like 6 to 8. It is probably 8 players is best, but if you have a group that does that and you guys like to party, you should definitely pick a copy of this up. We'll have a purchase link in the description box down below.
And while you're down there, do all the like and share and subscribe to our channel so you'll never be bored. He's winking. Come on. And while you're down there, do all the like, share, subscribe stuff, and click